What's poppin', y'all? Welcome to the first episode of College Basketball Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, the #1 Knicks fan in the world, and I'm excited. Y'all know I love college basketball. This is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I feel like right now is the right time to do it. College basketball this year is exciting for a lot of different reasons. The first and foremost is because last year it was impacted by COVID. The college basketball season was a lot different. Certain rules for certain teams depending on where they played or where they were located at. Some teams only played in conference games. It was just a mess. It was a mess, rightfully so. But this year, we're starting the season off on the usual tip, back to the normal way of college basketball seasons. And then also the prospects, right? Getting prepared for the draft. That's all the way next year, next summer in June. But to get that early start with the prospects and just to have you guys excited and to try to educate you or, get you more information earlier than you may usually get it and just show you how I watch the games or what I look for in prospects or how to decipher who's a better NBA talent versus this guy or whatever. But this first episode is going to be a prospect to watch video. We're a day away from the beginning of the season. So I'm giving you guys about 14, 15 guys to already have in your mind and be prepared to watch. And then as the season progresses, we'll get into more and more prospects. There's a lot of different prospects. We got one and done freshman guys. We got upperclassmen. We got all type of guys. So it's going to be a long year. A lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of things to unpack. But today's episode is the prospects to watch. So sit back, get your notepad out, and let's get it. The first thing to mention is that there's no order to my list. I literally started off with guys that you guys may not be that familiar with. And later in the video, we'll start to talk about guys that I'm pretty sure you've already heard. It's first and foremost is Matthew Cleveland, Florida State University wing. A guy that out of all the guys, it's him and another guy that has no footage of their exhibition games, which was kind of frustrating. But Florida State has turned their program into a program that's developing some good wings as of late. Leonard Hamilton needs a lot of love and a lot of credit. They've developed some very, very prolific wings in the last few drafts with Devin Vassell. Patrick Williams jumped up to fourth. As we saw, Scotty Barnes has been killing it lately in the NBA, who was also drafted fourth. And now they have an incoming freshman with Matthew Cleveland, who could replicate some of the same things. A guy I'm definitely keeping my eyes on. About 6'6", 6'7", still growing. Like I said, a freshman. He's going to be very active defensively. For him, it's going to be about the offensive side of the basketball. What is he going to be as an offensive player? Is he going to be just a 3-and-D guy? Can he create? Is he going to slash? Those are the questions I'm looking for him to answer, and I think he's in a great conference, the ACC, to answer some of those questions. He's going to play against the North Carolinas, the Virginias, the Dukes, and other top prospects that are in those conferences, and it's going to be good to see him defend those NBA-level talented players and then also figure out who he is as an offensive weapon. But I'm very, very intrigued with Matthew Cleveland. I think he's a guy that everybody should have on their radar somewhere of some sorts, just because of himself and his talent, but also because of the history over the last few years that Florida State and Leonard Hamilton has showed us with developing wings over there. They have a system, and I'm a believer in it, so I'm keeping my eyes on Matthew Cleveland, and you should too. The next guy is Tate Washington from Kentucky. It's a guy that social media, Twitter, people I've seen like a lot. And whenever I talk about the college basketball season or prospects have been brought up in my mentions or in just different conversations, I see a lot of people speaking highly of Tate Washington. So he's already developing a little bit of a fan base with this draft. But I like him because he's a guy that can shoot the basketball, plays very confidently out of the pick and roll, which is the #1, used play and system in the NBA. So that's already going to be good. And he has a sense of fearlessness, you know what I mean, when I'm watching him play, and an unconsciousness. Reminds me a little bit of guys like Terry Rozier at certain times, with just his offensive scoring ability and his aggression to look to score. And then some flashes, out of the pick and roll of Darius Garland with some of the passes I've seen him make. And as the season progresses, those are going to be the things that I want to see from him. The balance of scoring and getting his teammates involved and being a true point guard. Is he a true score-first point guard, or is he a Terry Rozier who's a combo guard, but you want to put him in a role where he's next to an actual playmaker or initiator like LaMelo and just let him really score. I'm definitely looking for those answers throughout this season, but I do think he's going to be a key figure for Kentucky, and we're going to see him have a lot of high-scoring games, almost at a Malik Monk type level, because his shot-making ability is extremely, extremely lethal. So Tate Washington, another guy to have highlighted on your list, especially in this class. A lot of guards, but they're not in the hierarchy yet. So some of these guards are going to have to start making their way up, because when you look at the boards, it's the bigs, wings, and wings. So we got to start seeing these guards make a name for themselves in the upper echelon of the prospect draft boards. My next guy, another guard, Kennedy Chandler out of Tennessee. Very crafty, showing some shot-making ability. Another guy that can play comfortably in a pick and roll. Same thing with him as far as Tate Washington. I know he's a capable playmaker for sure, but I want to know how much offensive ability that he has. Can he take over games? Is his shot true and real? Right now, from everything that I've seen, he reminds me a small bit of a Mike Conley. A guy who can do everything that you want in a point guard. He's going to defend, can get steals and be active. He can play in a pick and roll and really make plays for others, and then he can also hit shots. But I want to know the rate and the magnitude of what he can do. Can he take over a game if you needed 30 from him? You know what I mean? Can he have double-digit assist games? Can he really elevate the players and guys around him to another level? I think he's in a great position at Tennessee. They're going to be a good team, but I think it's going to be an opportunity for him to really lead them and answer some of those questions for us. I'm glad he's in this position instead of going to, a stacked program with other 5-star recruits and whatnot. That's heavy loaded. He is playing with another highly touted guy, Brandon Huntley, but they're not too loaded. I think he can really run the show and operate. But if right now, based off what I've seen in high school and in the early preseason exhibition games, I'm getting some Mike Conley vibes. Really Mike Conley, where I don't think he's going to do too much wrong. But for him, it's going to be at what level of a point guard is he? You know what I mean? And I think those questions will let us know how high to put him or how high to expect him to be drafted. But I think he's in a very good situation at Tennessee. So I'm excited to see Kennedy Chandler. The next guy is a returning guy, Benedict Mathern from Arizona. He is going to be a guy that is going to get a lot of love when we start getting closer and closer to June. And there's a lot more familiarity with him. And he's going to have a draft fan base. What I mean by that, like every year during a draft, we have the top echelon guys. We have guys that are like sleepers. But then we have guys who, like every team that's in the lottery or right around that area, they have these guys that you just want. You know what I mean? They become fan favorites of the draft, that every team is like, man, I would love if we could get this guy. I remember, I would say a couple years ago, I want to say it was like Desmond Bane. A lot of people love Desmond Bane. I think last year I would say Trey Murphy, where it was like every team that was drafting in a certain range was just like, man, Trey Murphy. Anywhere from 10 to like 19, all those teams were just Trey Murphy crazy. Trey Murphy. And I think the same thing will be the way for Mathern. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to have some highlights. He's already had in his freshman year. Athletic as hell, can put back dunks, can make contested shots, slash. And I think it'll be another level at Arizona. And again, he's playing in a conference with highly touted prospects. They're going to go against UCLA's and USC's and Colorado's, Stanford's. Those are our high-level competition that we're going to see him face. And I think he's going to have some highlights. And I think he's going to be a guy that a lot of teams and a lot of fans of those teams are going to want to see. The three-point shooting, like I said, playing off the ball, being able to finish at the rim, explosive. And then the defense to tie everything in. He's going to be your prototypical type of wing, 6'6" guy. And the level of shooting is going to be the major part of his game. How much of a shooter is he in the type of shooting? Is it just off the catch? Do you want to put it in his hands? Is he comfortable in a pick and roll? And then again, the defense. I want to see him against a Johnny Juzang or Peyton Watson and see how he holds his own against other NBA caliber prospects in that Pac-12. I believe it's Pac-12. Yeah, Pac-12. It used to be Pac-10 when I was younger. Anytime I say the wrong Pac, they attack me in the comments. So I think it's the Pac-12. I think it's the Pac-12. I'm a little bit older, so my Pacs are a little mixture. But Benedict Mathern, Arizona University, nonetheless. Definitely a guy, an upperclassman guy to keep your eyes on. The next guy that we have is a guy that I love. A guy that I love just because he's a close to home product, a guy who's worked out and trained with my little brother EJ plenty of times. Max Christie, Michigan State University. Boy, just a pure shooter, but score. I think it's a difference. You know what I mean? When we talk about shooters, we're talking about Joe Harris. We're talking about Duncan Robinson. But the ability to be a scorer who can shoot is a different level and a different skill in my mind. You know what I mean? When I think of, scorers who can shoot, I'm thinking of like CJ McCollum's. I'm thinking of Tyler Heroes, those type of players. And I think Max Christie has a chance to be right in that type of conversation of those type of players. Very smooth, very just fluid, natural, doesn't force the issue. He shows some turnaround, mid-range jumpers, catch off the catch, with the ball in his hands, range. He does everything silky smooth and everything is simple. And I think that's a skill in itself, to just be very simple, very straight to the point. And I think that's something that's going to have him going up on a lot of mock drafts, because the NBA right now is at a point where you either are going to be the man or you're going to complement the man. And I think Max Christie has potential to have games where he can be your man, but then also he can be on a team where he can complement your man. You know what I mean? If he can be a guy that could complement a Luka Doncic or Trae Young, of the sense. And we've seen certain guys carve those roles out, like Klay Thompson, and become all-stars or stars in that role. And I think Max Christie is one of those guys who can come in and fit the modern game of shooting the basketball, spacing the floor, but then also getting hot and taking over your game in a very simplistic way where he doesn't disrupt the flow of your offense. So Max Christie, and again, in a big-time conference in that Big Ten, going to go up against some high-caliber teams with other NBA prospects. Michigan has a lot of prospects over there, Caleb Houston-type guys, Nebraska with Bryce McGowan's, Illinois, and then everything and everybody they have, Ohio State with Liddell, and just there's a lot of big-time programs. Even Purdue with Jaden Ivy, another guy that's going to be on this list, he's going to go up against other NBA prospects, and I think that's a big-time thing when I evaluate prospects. Who they're going up against, how they do against those other prospects is going to answer a lot of questions. But Max Christie is a guy that I'm extremely high on, and I have big expectations for at Michigan State. Keeping the rhythm or the theme of the Big Ten basketball, a guy going to Nebraska. I think he's the highest rated player to ever commit to Nebraska, and that's Bryce McGowan. A lot of the same things I said about Max Christie, you can put for Bryce McGowan. Again, Big Ten, high-level competition, but not like Max Christie, because Nebraska isn't the same program that Michigan State has, which I think can be a pro and a con for Bryce. The con is if Bryce plays at the potential or the level I think he's capable of, a lot of eyes and a lot of attention are going to be against him, especially when it comes to conference time, and they're going to be able to key in on him. That could hurt him if the talent around him doesn't raise their game. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he's in a position where I think from day one, he's going to be able to command a big-time role in their offense. This guy is just like Max Christie as far as silky and smooth, but he can put it on the floor a little bit more from what I've seen. He has the ability to finish at the rim, put some guys on a poster, but again, can play within the offensive flow, doesn't need the ball and take away the flow or the rhythm of the offense, can shoot off the catch, shoot off the bounce, play in a pick and roll. He'll make a play or two here, has some tremendous size that if he's locked in and dialed in and super motivated on the defensive end, he can have some value there. This dude, Bryce McGowan, is going to jump up extremely on mock drafts. I've seen mock drafts where his name isn't even mentioned. He is going to be a guy that will shoot up. And if he doesn't, I'm going to be highly disappointed. I think this is the most smooth score, effortless score in this draft. As far as the guard position, shooting guard, he is a prototypical shooting guard. He reminds me a lot of like a CJ McCollum, where he can just get his in the flow, just super silky smooth, step back, off the dribble, pick and roll, off the catch, whatever you want to name, Bryce McGowan can do it. I've even seen him get it on the block. This dude is the truth, and I'm a big believer. Buy his stock as soon as you can. Bryce McGowan is going to be very big time for Nebraska in the Big Ten this year. Moving on, another guy from Kentucky. We already talked about Tate Washington, Damian Collins. Now, Damian Collins is a freak athlete with tremendous size, and I think if I had to put money or make a guess on anybody that's going to jump up out of nowhere on draft night or close to the draft night, is going to be Damian Collins. I would compare him to the same type of situation what we saw with Patrick Williams, a guy that probably won't start a single game this year at Kentucky. His stat sheets or his box score numbers after the season won't blow you away. He might be a guy that averages less than 10 points. But there's going to be intriguing people who are going to try to buy in on his potential. Like I said, freakish athlete, long arms, very versatile defender, covers a lot of ground. But if his offense in any way, shape, or form can catch up to the potential that he has on defense, he is going to be a problem. And I can see somebody buying in on that super early, the same way they did with Patrick Williams. Or if he does fall, he's going to be a diamond in the rough or a gem that somebody can take and use as a project. But I'm telling you right now, I don't plan on this guy to fall. I think he's going to be a guy that right now, if we drafted, they would take in the teens and try to get him early. So now, after a season of him actually playing and showing us more of those freakish moves or showing us more of his offensive arsenal, can he catch and shoot at a high level? Can he create for himself at all? When he answers those questions and we see it through the SEC for a full year, I think he's going to be a guy that can sneak into the top 10 with a very little in his box score numbers. Teams are going to line up at the door just from his potential. Damian Collins is going to be on a lot of highlight reels, though. Like his end of the season mix and highlight tape, it'll probably only be 3 minutes, but those 3 minutes will be very exciting. That's a name to watch in Kentucky. I'm telling you, that dude is going to jump up significantly out of nowhere. If I had to pick anybody, it would be him. The next guy on my list, Jalen Duran. Jalen Duran with Memphis. He's a guy that, and I think it's important for me to say, every guy that's on this list isn't a big believer for me. You know what I mean? I don't want to pretend or make you guys think that these are my 15 guys. They're on this list to watch because I think there's questions that need to be answered with these guys. And then there are some guys that I'm extremely high on, like Bryce McGowan. But a guy like Jalen Duran makes my list because he's a highly coveted name. He's high on a lot of draft boards, but I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered with his game. He is, so far, very old school Dwight Howard type big, where he's going to catch lobs and dunk, rebound. Don't know about the shot blocking yet. Haven't seen much, only exhibition and preseason games. But I don't know how much value is in that type of big man in the modern NBA. Because guys who just protect the rim and rim run, you just see teams keep signing those type of bigs on like low salaries. JaVale McGee's, you know what I mean? Damian Jones is of the world. They just, you just sign guys who can catch lobs and rim protect. I don't know how many teams are using top 10, top 5 picks on a guy who's just going to do that for you. But as the season unfolds, if he can show us that he can do, action at the elbow and make decisions and make reads, can he make a jump shot, at 15, 17 feet consistently? The pick and roll game, is he just a pick and roller? Can he pick and pop? How is his decision making out of the mid post after catching it on the roll? Can he make reads fast enough? Those are going to be things that we aren't going to need to see. But as of now, when I see him as high as top 5 in certain mock drafts, me personally don't see it. There's other prospects that I think offer more and can do more with more potential. But I'm definitely going to be watching a lot of Jalen Duran to see the impact or what type of big man and what type of player he can be. After Jalen Duran, we have a guy that I think I think highly of, right? And again, Pac-12, big time conference, going to see a lot of NBA competition, hopefully. Peyton Watson in UCLA. This dude gives me like Cam Reddish vibes. The same way I said about fan favorites through drafts and everybody's going to want him on his team, like with Benedict Mathern. I think the same with Peyton Watson. Like, I think he can be a Cam Reddish type dude where people just want to see Cam Reddish win. Cam Reddish has a lot of fans that are rooting for him, and a lot of people who think highly of him. And I think Peyton Watson will be the same way. He's very all over the place, right? Like, he can disrupt you defensively, get out in transition and finish, block some shots. The question is going to be his offensive skill set. I think he's going to be able to score. He has the ball handling, can put it on the floor, attack to the rim. But the shot creation for himself, the catch and shooting ability when others are creating for him, those are going to be the two main things that will determine him being a top echelon lottery pick or a guy that's maybe picked at the back end of the lottery, almost outside of the lottery. Those are going to be two key things that we have to see: the shooting consistency and how and what type of shooting he's doing. Is he creating for himself? Can he shoot off the catch? Those are going to be the big things. So tune into Peyton Watson. I think he's going to be a fan favorite when we get to draft time because I think this guy is going to deliver. I think he's going to be a versatile tool that some teams could use. Make the right reads, put it on the floor, dribble pass, shoot, athletic in transition, defensively, Swiss Army knife. Peyton Watson is another guy that I would buy an extreme amount of stock in to jump up and rise and be a fan favorite come June. For a lot of organizations and fans of the organizations. Moving on, again, like Jalen Duran, a guy that I see certain things with, but I'm not completely sold. AJ Griffin at Duke University. No offense to either guy, but especially to AJ Griffin about me not being sold. It's just the fact that he deals with a lot of injuries early on. Like right now, the game that I did watch and see, he didn't start for Duke. So he's not in their starting lineup yet. And I know that's because he had to spend a lot of his summer rehabbing. But a guy that reminds me so much of Jimmy Butler. I'm just letting y'all know that you're going to hear Jimmy Butler comparisons to AJ Griffin every time his name is mentioned, just because when you just see them move and walk on the court, it's damn near identical. They wear the same numbers, same type of hairstyle. And then when you watch AJ Griffin play, his game is super similar to Jimmy Butler. Moves without the basketball, can cut, get it in a post, the spin mid-range jump shot. Very, very, very similar to Jimmy Butler. Almost identical twins. But he has a lot of answers, a lot of questions to answer throughout the season. The number one is going to be durability. That's going to be the number one. He has to answer that one. And then the next few questions is everything else. His scoring ability, solidifying himself as the defender that I think we all think he can and will be. But then also just catching up and getting into the mix because Duke is talented and I have a lot of guys on that roster. So he's going to have to start playing catch up now, get back into the starting lineup, and then once he gets there, generate some offense, show his bags and his tools, his perimeter shooting, and all of that. And then he also has to be better at the free throw line from what I've seen in the exhibition game. But AJ Griffin is definitely another name to be highlighting. Jimmy Butler 2.0. Next, we have another upperclassman, Jaden Ivy. I think he's going to take a Tyrese Halliburton type jump. I don't think their games are similar at all. I'm not comparing him player for player. But I remember Tyrese Halliburton had a very solid freshman year. And then he did the FIBA U19 thing with all the other college guys. And after that, he skyrocketed on mocks and got the attention of draft people all around. And then his sophomore season, he solidified himself as a legit lottery pick. And I think the same thing is going to be for Jaden Ivy at Purdue. He had a nice, solid freshman season. And it's funny because I had a fan DM me about him. And I was like, Jaden Ivy is cool. He might be there for a few years or whatever. And then, boom, he does the FIBA U19, goes crazy. Shows everything on a consistent basis and really stood out. And now he's primed to solidify himself as a legit lottery pick, maybe even top 5, top 6, if he answers it with his sophomore season. So I think he's in the same way as Tyrese Halliburton, where he gets on the radar freshman year, solidifies it in the summer with the FIBA team, and then that sophomore season you solidify yourself as like, boom, I'm in the upper echelon of the guards in the draft. Dude is a engine and a motor that doesn't stop. He's going to be a problem defensively. It's all about the jump shot. Like for most prospects, the consistency in the jump shot, off the dribble, shot creation, playing out of the pick and roll. But as far as going downhill, attacking, he's legit there, and I think he's going to be unstoppable going downhill once he figures out how to make reads faster, quicker, and then the jump shot will open up and unlock everything else. But I do think this dude can be an extremely high-level two-way guard in the NBA, and there's going to be a lot of teams that need a player like him. So many teams right now are kind of all over the place when you think of rebuilding. Some guys offensively just drafting guys who just chuck and get theirs. The two ways, is where it's at, and he's going to be a dynamic two-way guard. And if he can show some increase in playmaking, some teams could experiment with him as a point guard. He's not a natural point guard. So that's always a thing. He doesn't look like a natural point guard yet, but a combo guard who could facilitate, score, attack downhill, and guard multiple positions will be very intriguing for some of the teams that we are seeing rebuilding right now. So Jaden Ivy is a guy that probably the best upperclassman in this draft, in my opinion. After Jaden Ivy, Jabari Smith Jr. from Auburn, probably the guy that I think nobody has in their top five, nobody has in their top five that I really see could solidify himself. I think he's like the best kept secret. People know Jabari Smith. You know what I mean? Like, let me make that clear. But the people that know him, I don't think that they talk about him as highly as they should. Jabari Smith Jr. at Auburn, I think, is probably right in the conversation of the top two. I think you can put him in the conversation with Chet, Paulo, and even the Patrick Baldwin Juniors of the world. Like, he's in that mix. And I can't wait to see him play. No footage of their exhibition game, but he reminds me of a high-level Christian Wood. And everybody was obsessed and in love with Christian Wood when he started to break out. And I think you can get that version out the gate. Like, imagine the Christian Wood we have now. Imagine if teams knew that he was like that and had him from day one. Jabari Smith Jr. is going to shoot the ball incredibly from the perimeter as a big, but he can go inside and be aggressive and post up, dunk, play off the pick and roll, pop, dive, alley-oop threat, protect the rim, guard on the perimeter. He really doesn't have any holes in his game as a modern big man. His frame is a little thin. People want to talk about that a lot. Will he get bullied around the basket? But as he continues to grow into his body, put on weight, put on muscle, he's going to be a legitimate problem. He's the prototypical modern NBA big man. And I look at him kind of in the same mode as Chet. Chet does some things better. Chet is a more bigger name. But Jabari Smith is not that far away, in my opinion. He's not that far away. Going to be interesting to see how it works out in Auburn. But I think this dude is legit. And, boy, he is top three, in my opinion. He's top three worthy in that conversation. It's Chet and Boncharo for sure. Those are the main two guys everybody knows. And then it's like Patrick Baldwin Jr., Caleb Houston. I've even seen Jalen Duran, Jaden Ivy. Obviously, we're not mentioning Jaden Ivy or overseas players because they're not in college basketball, but just as a draft mocks. But boy, Jabari Smith, in my opinion, could jump Jaden Hardy. I'm gonna leave it there. Next, prospects. I'm putting these two guys together as of right now. I do have a guy that I like more, but I'm going to clump them together. And these are two wings, the two top wings, Caleb Houston and Patrick Baldwin Jr., PBJ. These two are going to battle as far as the hierarchy. Right now, my money is on Patrick Baldwin Jr. I just think he's in a great situation for himself. I like the way his game is played, and I think he's a lot more fluid offensively. And I think he can gain separation if he continues to double down on that with going to, UW Milwaukee with his father instead of a loaded team like Duke. So he can answer us questions. Is he a go-to guy? That's the main question with Patrick Baldwin Jr. Is there potential for him to be your go-to guy on a Jason Tatum, Paul George type level? But that's the intrigue with him, in my opinion, because even if he isn't that, He's going to be an extremely very good star in his role as a complementary second to third role player. With his potential at 6'9", sharpshooter, he's going to be able to guard. He's a coach's son, so he understands how to play within a system. And, coach's sons know how to make the proper reads. They never do too much. Everything is just fluid, and the IQ is there. He is going to be the prototypical guy you want next to your star if he himself isn't your main guy. And that's why right now I have him over Caleb Houston, because I think Caleb Houston is just that. Even with his potential, with his size and his marksman and the sniper that he has, and even his upside defensively with his size and versatility on the perimeter as a defender, I think that's what Caleb Houston is. He is a guy that you draft, and he's going to complement your go-to guy and your star. I think that's the level at what he does. It is where his potential is. But I don't think he's going to be any more than that. I don't see Caleb Houston putting the ball on the floor and being a shot creator of any sorts. And I think that's why I see him as a complementary star to your superstar, Klay Thompson type role for Caleb Houston. But Patrick Baldwin Jr., that's the least, is that he's going to complement your star or whatever. But on the other hand, this season can show us if he has superstar potential. As of now, I'm taking Patrick Baldwin Jr., but that's no slight at all to Caleb Houston. He's still a top upper echelon wing, and a guy that I think is going to be in a good, solid program like Michigan. We saw what Franz Wagner is now doing with Orlando Magic, and he's going to be a very, very simple guy. Again, like the Max Christie, where it's just simple, it's not flashy, but he's going to get the job done. He's going to be efficient, and he's going to give you everything you need to make your team better and to put you in position to win games at a very high level. Caleb Houston is legit. I'm just taking Patrick Baldwin Jr. because I think his ceiling may have potential to be higher. But again, that's no slight on Caleb Houston. That dude is the real deal, and I'm excited to watch him again in the Big Ten. We have a lot of conferences with a lot of high-level prospects, and they're going to be able to play against each other, and that's going to be very, very fun to break down these guys when they're playing against each other. Now, the last two guys, these are the top echelon guys in college basketball. Paulo Boncharo at Duke, the real deal. It's just how real. You know what I mean? Everybody in this draft class right now, it's the beginning of college basketball. It's how real are these guys? I believe in a lot of them, but it's at what level? And I'm curious to see what Boncharo proves. You know what I mean? Like, he right now is like the ideal four that can maybe steal minutes at a small ball five. He's big, he's strong. He reminds me of a modern Blake Griffin. And what I mean by modern Blake Griffin is Blake Griffin came into the league where it was still like power forward and center, pick and roll. It wasn't so perimeter centric yet. And he was dunking on people, and he just could post up and just bruise you. But as we saw in Blake Griffin's career, he was so much capable of more. But because of the team he was on and the way basketball was played, then it was a little bit hidden. But Blake Griffin is a big who could dribble. He worked on his shot, became a guy who was pick and popping, mid-range, three-pointers, still could dunk on you, but you can run your offense through. I think Paulo can be that type of power forward or / small ball center, where he can get the rebound and go, make decisions for you, can take other bigs off the dribble from the perimeter. He can set a screen, pop, and make you pay for that. Mid-range shot. He can also get in there, offensive rebound, dunk the ball back for putbacks, put some guys on a poster. You can put him on a block and he can go to work. I want to see him shoot over his shoulders. Do he have turnaround fades? How quick is he on the face-up? There's a lot of, facets to his game offensively that remind me of Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin, I feel like if we saw modern Blake Griffin, the player that was all NBA with the Detroit Pistons, if we were able to see him in that mold for the entirety of his career, we would talk about Blake Griffin in a different light. We already respect him. He's an all-star. He did very well just as the dunker, for sure. But the longevity and the way we talk about Blake Griffin, I think would be super, super perceived differently if he played in that modern way from day one versus first 4 or 5 years being just this dunker lob city. And it may have given him more longevity in his career because we saw the injuries pile up on him. Even from day one, he misses an entire rookie year with the knee injury. So I really want to see him show me more of that too, because Blake Griffin at Oklahoma was a problem. So if we can get Paulo Boncharo to have some year like that at Duke with the weapons around him, oh man, it's going to be a super, super tough decision to see who's going to go first overall. And then last but not least, Chet Homgrim from Gonzaga. Again, I'm a believer. I love this kid's game. But at what level is he going to be at? Is he going to run away with the number 1 pick? I personally do think and project him to be the number 1 pick because his ceiling and the position that he plays is just too lethal. It's too lethal. The unicorns as a 5, you have to take. You have to take because if it pans out and it hits, it can unlock and open up so much for your franchise. You know what I mean? Like, I look at him as a Porzingis type mode where. And when I say Porzingis mode, I do mean all-star version of Porzingis in, New York, where he can play center. And I like Gonzaga putting him at center from day one. I think that's been a problem with unicorns is you put them at 4 and 5, and then it becomes like they're tweeners. You don't know what they are. They don't really have a position. So hopefully he does play a lot of 5 for Gonzaga throughout the whole season, and we label him as a center, not a wing. He's not Kevin Durant. He's not fluid like that at all. But he can take it off the board and go coast to coast with a comfortable handle. He can step out and hit threes comfortably. He can take other bigs, off the dribble from the perimeter. He is legit. I've seen him post up, get offensive boards, dunk, block shots. He is a 5, and I think teams honing in on that early, solidifying him as a 5 who can stretch the floor and do a bunch of different things will make him strong because we've seen guys like Porzingis come in as a 4, you pair him with a 5, then you just try to throw him at 5, and they're so uncomfortable, and all they want to do is shoot 7, 8, 9 threes a game. Chet can shoot. He should shoot 4 or 5 of them, but I also want to see teams let him post up, let him be a role man, embrace him as a center, and the more comfortable he is there, the more easier it'll be to translate into that. I think the unicorn role for bigs has kind of been sloppy and a little messed up. The Jaren Jacksons, Porzingis of the worlds, we fell in love with it, and these are still 2 good players, don't get me wrong, but I think they got super comfortable shooting from the perimeter and playing away from the basket, where you still want guys to get in there and post up like an Evan Mobley. And I love the way that Cleveland is playing Evan Mobley, where he does play out, he does do a bunch of different things that's in his arsenal, but he's just not a sit still stretch big. He mixes it up, and I think if Holmgren can do that at Gonzaga, and he will do it at a high level, he's going to be the runaway number 1 pick, just because the potential of that is going to elevate a franchise to another level, because that position of a 5 being able to stretch out, space the floor for the rest of the team does so much. And then to be able to rim protect, guard on the perimeter on switches, it's a cheat code. It's like NBA 2K at that point. So I'm a big believer in Chet, but I want to see Gonzaga hone in and focus and make him be a center and be comfortable there. And that'll be the path for him to be the number 1 pick. Those are my prospects to watch. This is the first ever episode of College Basketball Weekly. I know y'all can tell I'm excited as ever. As always, though, I encourage conversation in the comments. Let me know prospects or people or players, whether they're freshmen, upperclassmen, that you're high on. If it's a school that you're a fan of and you got a particular guy that you really think highly of and you think he's underrated or he's a gem, let it be known in the comments. Let's start some dialogue early before the season starts tomorrow. I'm always in the comments watching, and leave a like. Let's get these likes up, please. Let's try to get 1,000 likes. I want to start aiming for 500 to 1,000 likes every single video. So do that for me. If you're new and you've never seen any of my content, subscribe. Check out the rest of those videos. NBA Weekly is something that I always do. We do mailbag episodes, 2K content, behind the scenes of my Through the Wire podcast with House of Highlights and Bleacher Report. And now we're introducing College Basketball Weekly. As always, I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, the #1 Knicks fan in the world. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm out.